and welcome to episode number 40 of the Introvert Biz Growth Podcast, the show where I talk to introverts who grow their business and make a difference. I'm Sarah Sinacroce, as always, and so happy that you're spending this time with me today. I just got back from 2 weeks in Sicily and had an amazing time. And in case you haven't heard yet, I've been repeating it over and over again, I'm organizing a retreat for introverted entrepreneurs at my place in Sicily in May 2018. And during our visit this time, I kind of went to test some of the events that I have planned for you. So, for example, I signed up and dragged my husband along for a food and wine walking tour through Syracuse, which was just simply amazing. And what was really funny is, we expected a bunch of Europeans being part of the tour, but it ended up being all Canadians. So my husband is Italian Canadian, and so we ended up being in a group full of Canadians and had just a great evening tasting lovely wine and delicacies from Sicily, and of course learning a little bit about the history, the Duomo, and everything. It's just Syracuse at night is just absolutely stunning. I also talked to the lady who will take us to the market and then host us at her place to cook an authentic Sicilian meal together. So that's another event I have planned. So yes, I'm totally excited for this first time ever retreat for introverted business owners. And if you're curious, you should really check out all the details at introvertmastermind.com. And if you think it's a fit, please already start looking into booking a clarity call, because obviously being an introvert retreat, we're not going to have 20 or more people. It's going to be a very small, intimate retreat. So think about booking a clarity call so we can get to know each other, and I'd be delighted to have you. Now back to today's episode. Today I'm talking to Kamila Gornia. Kamila Gornia is the blow up, scale up marketing strategist who helps entrepreneurs blow up and scale up their businesses to become true leaders online. By teaching her clients and community how to leverage their own natural personalities into strategic marketing campaigns that are both profitable and fun, Kamila is proving over and over again that if you can dream it, you can actually achieve it. Now, Kamila has a really interesting story, having moved from Poland to the US and having started her first business adventure at only 12 years old. And she tells us all about her struggles as an introverted adolescent, wanting to fit in, moving from one country that's really introverted to a place, probably the most extroverted place in the whole world, which is California. And so she tells us about her struggles and, wanting to fit in, but deep down actually also knowing that she's different from others. So without further ado, here's the interview with Kamila. Hi, Kamila. How are you today?
Hi, Sarah. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. As I just said offline, I was looking at your website and realized that you came from Poland, which is my side of the world, where I'm based in Switzerland, and now you live in the US. Which side of the US are you in?
I'm currently in California, so the West Coast.
Oh, okay. So it's early morning for you right now.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about your story, besides the official bio that I read in the intro, and maybe something that the introverted audience can relate to.
Based on the intro, you probably already know that I'm a marketing strategist and I own a marketing and business education company. So I support entrepreneurs and leaders with heart behind hustle and actually getting out there and blowing up and scaling up and getting known, making money, making an impact in the world. And it wasn't always that I focused on this kind of stuff. I've always been marketing. I've always been a very marketing minded person ever since I was like 12 years old. It's been a part of my life. But what happened is, yes, I lived in Poland up until I was 13 years old, and I moved over to Chicago when I was 13 with my mom, and we joined my dad, who was already living here for a couple years. And, I was like any other kid, I guess. I had my own interests and passions and creative outlets, if you will. But what happened when I moved to America is, as a kid with an accent and as a kid that, was a brand new country, brand new city, didn't know anybody. What happened is I really started wanting to assimilate. And in the process of assimilation, I started letting go of a lot of pieces of myself that were me. A lot of things like I was really into manga and drawing. And I realized that even though in Poland, I didn't really care that I was like the only person that was into manga, because it is kind of a, obscure hobby. I wanted to hide the parts of myself that were not quote unquote normal. I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be accepted, as a normal kid.
I guess normal as a teenager, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in that process, I kind of went really deep into it because I wanted to be accepted and because I wanted to be liked. And as an only child, I've always been alone, and which is probably why I'm an introvert too, because I'm just so used to, solitude and independence as well. So what had happened is all these pieces of myself, being creative, being a little goofy, and, being me, have started to kind of make way for this more idealistic version of myself. Mm-hmm. Not to say that I was perfect by any means, not even close, but I became a little bit obsessed with this idea that I need to be liked and I need to show up in a very specific way. So this actually put me in a place of not the best choices in my life. I partied a little bit too much. I went into, too much drinking, too much, doing drugs, all that kind of stuff, hanging out with the wrong people, dating the wrong guys, and, doing all the things that I was doing out of actually my desperation for just acceptance. Mm-hmm. And because I didn't have that security in myself of like, I'm just going to be myself no matter what, I was always seeking approval from other people. And my introversion definitely supported that because I was by myself a lot. Like I said, I was by myself after school. I didn't really do any extracurriculars because I was afraid of being judged for like not understanding what somebody would say. And I didn't want kids to make fun of me. It was really strange because it was kind of like two different mindsets were pushing against each other. The one mindset of my being an introvert, wanting to hide and wanting to not, just do my own thing. And the other side of me of wanting to be accepted and wanting to have friends and wanting to do all these things. But there were two sides of me that were kind of like butting heads. Mm-hmm. And which one would be winning, right? So because I wasn't aware of this, I didn't start doing personal development work until my early 20s. But because of this, there was a lot of just challenges for me from doing drugs or doing the wrong things in terms of even schooling and like taking courses or taking on a major because I thought that would be like the cool thing to do versus what I actually wanted to do. Especially in college and actually at the end of high school, I did start doing more of entrepreneurial things. So I started a photography business. Also not because I necessarily loved photography. It was nice. It was fun. I needed a creative outlet that wouldn't be drawing because I would draw comics. I used to want to be a graphic novelist when I was younger. Mm-hmm. And it was my way of just like, okay, this is the more accepted way of me sharing my ideas. My photography was still a little bit weird and obscure, and people that saw it had different kinds of reactions, which was positive for me because I wanted people to have emotional reactions. But when I started that business, that's when things started to kind of take shape in a different way, because anytime that you have a business, you start coming against like naysayers. That's just what happens. And I think that's actually a really positive thing for us because we start to really commit harder to what we actually like, how we want to show up in the world. And there's two ways that, that can go. We're either going to quit the business and just, stay stuck and stay not being happy with what we're doing, or we're going to commit even more and say, you know what, screw it. I don't care what these people say. I'm just going to show up in the way that's going to support me because I know I'm meant to do this. So I was doing photography. Then I kind of started moving into, I created this health blog, and mostly because I wanted to expand my photography skills. And also I was really interested in health and wellness. And that's just something I was always interested in. So I started talking more about that. And that's when I started realizing more and like studying consciously about marketing. So even though I've been doing marketing for like years at that point with other kind of things that I was doing, little ventures and stuff, I started to realize, okay, marketing is really great. It's really interesting. And I started to own my skills. I started to own the fact that I'm actually good at this and not everybody is actually marketing minded naturally. So because of this, I worked in different agencies. I worked in different marketing agencies, ad agencies, and eventually ended up, starting my own marketing coaching business mostly because I wanted to support people who were in a place like I was before, people that know they have something to share inside of them that felt like, they're not going to be accepted if they actually play full out, or maybe they're a little bit weird, or maybe they're doing things in a way that isn't, 100% what everyone else is doing. Or maybe it is. They feel like there's that something inside of them that's like burning for getting out there and for making an impact and for making a change in the world. Because that's how I always felt. I always wanted to make that impact. It was something that I've always felt in my heart that I knew I was meant to be doing. So that's who I wanted to work with, because I really, that's what I needed when I was, there was someone that could have just talked to me when I was, a teenager, saying, it's okay for you to just be yourself. It's okay for you to claim the fact that, be different and claim the fact that you have hobbies, and claim the fact that, like, so what if no one understands? So what if, like, people think that this is weird? It makes you happy, and that it's like, this is your creative outlet. That's you doing self-care for yourself. So I think it's really important, and through marketing and be able to support people and actually like giving them the tools and the strength and the ability to actually do something with those skills and create an actually like thriving, successful, sustainable business that it's basically like the best way of telling naysayers, be like, you know what? Yeah, I am weird. I'm different. And because I own this part of myself, here's what I was weird to create for myself. And through that, you can, first of all, inspire other people. But secondly, you're making the impact that that you were meant to make, especially if you're helping people, which I hope everybody is, that goes into business. More people are being able to be helped by your work, which I think is just, the other big piece from that. So that's a little bit on that.
It's a very interesting story, Kamila. And I wonder if you have ever asked yourself the question, if things would have been different if you had stayed in Poland, and if your introversion would have been, kind of regarded differently over here in Europe, or you'd never considered that and you thought, well, this is just something that I have to go through because I'm a teenager and I have to adapt and all of that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have thought about this a good amount, like how, not that much, because I tend to not live in the past as much. I'm more a future oriented person, but I do sometimes think about like, well, I wonder how my life would be different if I actually stayed in Poland. I don't know if I would have a business, because that's not something that was very commonly talked about, not in an online business perspective, at least. My mom did have a business when we lived in Poland, so it wasn't like totally a new thing for me, but it's, brick and mortar. She had a beauty studio. So it's kind of like different from what I'm doing. But in terms of introversion, I think that's the really interesting question. So I am not super far on the introversion scale. I'm closer to, like, there's parts of me that I like to be social. I'm still an introvert. I consider myself an introvert. That's how I recharge. That's how I like to spend time alone. But I still like to be social, and I still like to hang out with friends and be with friends and have deep connections with people. And I don't know if I would be more introverted or if I'd be less introverted if I stayed in Poland, because I already had friends there. So I probably wouldn't have to have gone through that whole, probably would have, but maybe not as to an extent of like wanting to be accepted and wanting to assimilate and wanting to be liked and having all these insecurities kind of thrown in the mix. I don't know if it would have been as big if I stayed in Poland, but who knows, right? There's so many things that could have happened that it's really hard to speculate.
It is. I just have this theory, and I've brought this up several times on the podcast, is that because introversion is regarded differently in Europe compared to the US, where in the US up till now, basically until Susan Cain's book came out, it was considered like either you're shy or you're socially awkward. So the whole thing of being introverted wasn't a thing. And actually in Europe, there's a lot more people who are introverted, meaning that they're a bit more reserved, and it's a cultural thing as well. And I have friends who are Polish, and a lot of them are introverts. So that's why I'm saying maybe if you had stayed in Poland, you would have been surrounded by other people who are kind of more reserved and quiet, where you moved to, California, where people are a lot more outgoing. And it was kind of this thing you had to almost become an extrovert. So that's always a topic that I find interesting. Because I remember we lived in California for 4 years, and both my kids are introverts, but my son, who was then only 6 years old, the principal of the kindergarten took me aside and said, I think your son might need some coaching. He's never going to be a leader. He's too quiet. I'm like, what is your problem? He's 6 years old. And so that just kind of, obviously that was like one specific example, but I've noticed with other guests on the show that in the States, it's just kind of like introverts are being pushed much harder to kind of be the extroverted self. And I'm pretty much an ambivert, so somewhere in the middle as well. But in the US, it seems kind of like you're being pushed much harder to be that extroverted self.
Yeah,
so.
That's really interesting. I haven't even thought of it that way. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
Like I lived in Poland up until I was 13. So like I haven't probably even like investigated it in this way.
Yeah.
As much, but I mean, now that I think about it, like it's totally true that people are definitely more keeping to themselves.
Yeah.
And for many different reasons too, but I totally agree with you. I think that's
just an interesting topic that I always find fascinating. Yeah. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about, your current business. And basically my audience is interested how you created this business and how you're currently generating revenue, being an online business. So I've seen that you work with clients, you have a mastermind. So go into a bit more details about what kind of revenue streams you have.
Yeah, I have a couple of different revenue streams for a while. For about 2 years in my business, I would say 50% of our income was coming in from done for you work. So I had an agency style side of my business where we were doing Facebook ad management for clients for different 6 and 7-figure entrepreneurs. So that was a big part of the revenue. Now we're actually in the process of scaling away from that model because of different reasons. And most of the revenue that comes in is basically through my mastermind, which is a high-level mastermind for people that are either already at 6 figures or getting there around the 6 figures. And I support them in like getting to multiple 6 figures and kind of stuff for service-based and coaches and that kind of stuff. So that's the biggest piece. That's the biggest chunk. The other one is my Accelerator, which is for people that aren't quite there, that are ready for the mastermind. And it's a 4-month Accelerator where basically it's for coaches and service providers and different people who have been working with one-on-one clients and want to create more leverage and want to double their income, their cash flow within 4 months or more, or triple, quadruple, or whatever it is that they want to create depending on where they're starting out. So it's also business kind of related, and there's some marketing pieces in there. So those like group style offers, they're the majority of my income that is more active, I would say. But then I also have a lot of like outside different things. I have a lot of courses that I sell. I have low ticket items. I have a couple of bigger courses that are $1,000, $2,000. I have a membership site. I do events here and there. I do retreats here and there. Sometimes on an off chance, I'll have a private client or like a VIP day that I do. I don't typically work with clients privately. I mostly do my mastermind or group work, and then that includes some private support. So it's all come from understanding how I like to work in the best way, how my clients are going to get the best version of me. And that was through me supporting people in groups and then having little tiny like intensive sessions as a support to that. So
nice. So I'm assuming this is online groups, right?
Yes, they're all online.
Yeah. Wow. Sounds like you have really kind of mastered every little revenue stream, from like small products to retreats. And what I get is that because you're an introvert, you kind of want to save, the time for clients, but have it in a group session. And that's how you work best. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, totally. I don't know if it has to do with the fact that I'm an introvert or not, but I just know that I prefer groups. It's just always been that I work best in groups because I like intensive support. I'm a generator in human design, and that's basically like me being intensively like, I'm very like go, quick starting person. And whenever I work with clients in a one-on-one setting, it's too much hand-holding for me, where I'm ready to go on to the next thing. The client typically isn't, which is why I'm not the best person to support somebody like that, unless they're in a very specific place that I can actually support and, we vibe really well. But that's very rare that I would even present the option for one-on-one support for somebody that wants to work with me. But I think it just really has to do with like personality, like how I like to work. Having an online business is supportive for any introvert because we don't actually have to physically see people if we don't want to. That's why I like doing events and I like doing retreats that are smaller, because I get to meet people and hang out with people. But I still have to be very conscious of like, how do I structure my days, and like being with clients every single day for 5 days and not having any breaks, like that's a little bit much for me. Like I need to have like the evening for myself, or, just structuring things in a way that actually supports me. But something that I've learned too is as my confidence grew, as I had this business, it's like my extroversion came out more because I was more confident in my abilities, and it was easier for me to actually interact with people and be present and, that kind of stuff too. So
yes. Yeah. So that kind of already answered some of the next question, which is the introverted superpowers. But you were saying maybe it has nothing to do with introversion, but you just like to work in groups. So can you think of another strength that you think is related to introversion, other than the fact that you're working in an online business, obviously? But what would you say is your biggest strength as an introverted entrepreneur?
I think the biggest strength for me that I know my extroverted friends don't have is I'm very inquisitive. And very self-reflective. I've always been like that because we have the time and space for ourselves. And, a lot of that time is spent, for me at least, investigating my thoughts and thinking about my behaviors and thinking about like my mindset. And it's very self-reflective. I'm a very aware person. I'm a very conscious person. And I think that's something that introverts have a leg up in because of the environment that we're in and how we actually operate. It's really supportive in being able to ask ourselves these questions. And whenever I talk to my extroverted friends, it's like they always feel like they have to fill their brain with social activities, with doing things, with being outside and doing all these things. And then there's no room left over for like being curious about yourself and knowing yourself. And that's something I hear a lot from people.
Yeah. It's definitely a strength, but sometimes I feel like it also is a challenge because then we're too much in our heads all the time. So what would you say is one of the challenges that you're facing as being?
I mean, I agree. I think it's, it's really easy to go into analysis paralysis as well, where we kind of get stuck thinking and planning and like, okay, this and this and this. And I think a weakness for me is like, well, we all have social needs. Like that's just how we are. Like we're all social creatures, whether we're an introvert or an extrovert or whatever. We all need to actually be with people in different doses. And a weakness for me as an introvert is that it's so comfortable for me to be alone, especially since I live alone too. It's so easy and it's so comfortable that I very often will choose that and not seek out ways to fill my social needs. And then if I'm not social for like a week or 2 weeks. And trust me, like there have been 2 weeks where I did not see a single soul.
Like I'll make sure to put something on my calendar to check in with you before next week.
No, I mean, I talk to people on the computer, but like in person is kind of what I mean.
Right.
It's easier now that I have an office space. So I actually like go into the office space. I see other people. It's
that's
easier.
Good. Yeah.
But when I worked from home, it was challenging because it's so easy to just be like, I'm just going to work from home. And then afterwards you're so tired. You just kind of want to like chill and relax, and getting dressed and seeing people, you're like, I just really want to recharge. And, a weakness for me is I become a hermit, and then my anxiety tends to increase if I become a hermit because I'm not getting all my needs met.
And because you're spending all this time in your head, and then sometimes these kind of negative feedback loop comes up, and so it's still good to go out there and make that definitely a habit. For me, it's a bit different right now because I have 2 boys and they come home after school, and so I feel like there's always somebody around, but the minute they're gone, I'll have to restructure my day as well because, I mean, it's nice to talk to clients online, but it's just not the same kind of, I'm not sure it fills your social needs bucket in the same way that a real interaction does, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
To touch somebody and just kind of see them. Yeah, it's not the same thing. So yay for online business, but it's good to see people in person still. And I agree, those retreats, I mean, that just fills you up because you also get to choose with whom you're spending your time, right? Exactly. That's another thing that we introverts prefer to do is to actually, it's not just anybody, like usually we're pretty picky with whom we want to spend time with. So.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. Okay. So we're getting to the 3 golden nuggets that I always ask my guests. So the first one would be a personal habit that you think contributes to your success, something that you do on a regular basis.
So I would say my mornings tend to be pretty steady in how I actually start my day. And a habit is just that entire kind of routine. So every time that I wake up, I light incense, that like nice kind of scent. It's like an anchor for me to just become like meditative in a way. So I surround myself with I like crystals, and I'm not super woo woo, but like I would say I'm on like medium woo. So I like to just be in that kind of environment that actually supports me and lifts me up and gets me in the high vibe, making sure that I have that space for that every single morning. So it's just setting that day, thinking of what I need to do, and like, just being really clear that I'm setting the foundation for my day right in the morning as soon as I wake up.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I start my mornings with meditation. And so it's similar. It's kind of like grounding,
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
No matter how you do it, whether it's prayer or incense or meditation or just staring out in the
I do that too.
Sky. Yeah.
I'm just stare.
Yeah. What about an internet resource, like some kind of online tool that you use every day? Or
the main tool that I use every single day is Infusionsoft, and that's my email marketing /CRM / automation tool.
Yep.
Log in there several times a day to communicate with my tribe, look at my payments that are coming in, and just be able to plan everything from that end.
Okay. Have you always used Infusionsoft, or did you switch from another tool to?
I've been using Infusionsoft for a while. It's probably been 2 or 3 years that I've been using it. In the beginning, I used MailChimp. That was like in the very beginning of my business.
Okay.
I moved into Infusionsoft pretty fast.
Okay. Because I know that it's quite pricey. So for some people, Infusionsoft is probably not the tool to start out with. So either it's MailChimp or Aweber, usually people start out with. And then, there's ConvertKit, or I'm using ActiveCampaign, but these are still only email marketing tools, where Infusionsoft is a full CRM and affiliate platform and whatnot. Great. Now, I saw on your website that you're also a bookworm, so like most introverts, actually. So which book would you recommend to the Biz Growth audience, and why?
So I'll share a book that I'm reading right now, audiobooking right now, which is by Grant Cardone, called Be Obsessed or Be Average. And it's really good because it's very intense. And it actually really supports me in getting in the zone and getting super motivated, and affirms what I believe. I never really liked him. I never really was into what he said because he's so intense. But when I actually started listening to this book, everything that he says, almost everything that he says really resonates with me, and how I actually believe in doing what we're meant to be doing and showing up and no excuses kind of thing. I definitely subscribe to that kind of mentality. So it's been really great for motivational purposes, if you will.
Excellent. I'll look that up. I've never heard of it. What was the name again? The author?
Grant Cardone.
Okay. I've never heard of him.
Yeah, he's a real estate investor, entrepreneur, multiple 7-figure business owner.
Okay. Definitely look him up, and I'll put the link in the show notes, obviously. So, wow, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much, Kamila. You shared a lot of insights, and also, part of your story that was probably a bit vulnerable to share. So thank you so much for that. It makes for an interesting conversation, and I hope it helps our listeners to, to realize, obviously you started out small and built a business that you can now be proud of. So congrats for that.
Thank you.
I always end the conversation with a mindful ending. So what are you grateful for today, or this week, this month?
I am grateful for my clients who are continuing to inspire me and committing to their work.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Kamila.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of the Introvert Biz Growth Podcast. To find out more about Kamila, go to KamilaGornia.com, or you'll find out all about her on Facebook, facebook.com/KGornia. That's KGORNIA. You'll find this episode's show notes at sarahsantacroce.com/episode 40. And if you're listening to this show on a mobile device, most likely you are, you can click on the description And you'll find actually all the links there, and they're clickable. So don't hesitate to go and have a look there. Thanks so much for listening. This is Sarah Senecroce signing off from the Introvert Biz Growth podcast. Remember, you need to use your unique introverted superpowers in order to make a difference.